morning. Wow. Nina, you are a tough act to follow. So thank you for all of your wise words of wisdom. So right now we're going to pivot a bit and we're going to go into the quality education sector. Before we start there, I just want to comment that this has been a phenomenal morning thus far. Hearing from Roberto Ramirez about our census, 111 million by 2060. Wow, we are a force to be reckoned with. 3 to 4% in the tech sector. Just, it's like I've always known that number, but yet today when I hear it, it just lands greatly. And Lily, I loved your return on inclusion, your ROI. That stuck with me and it resonated because in order to get that return on inclusion, we have to be included from the beginning. So we have work to do. We are making our paths. And as we pivot into quality education, we have to educate our future. And the future started yesterday. So we are right on our path and we're going to continue to move forward. So as we talk about education and quality education with our illustrious panel, so how can we provide access to quality education and developmental opportunities? And we want to discuss and discover what's corporate America's role in that. So as we explore corporate America's role in the development of our next generation of Latinos, as well as the opportunities they can provide in their early development and in the future inclusion of the workplace. So our panel is going to focus on that. Sorry, I've got like papers. I was expecting to be at the podium because I love the podium. It's something where I put my hands and put my papers. So let's get into that discussion. And Merary, I'll start with you. So what is corporate America's role in ensuring access to education and skilling opportunities for the Hispanic community?
Thank you for the question, Delia. But first, I don't know about you, but I'm like just so excited to be here with people that look like me, with professionals that think like me. And I just want to say, if you're not hyped today, you come to the wrong place because this is here, the opportunities that were just provided to us. I mean, everything that was presented, I am just so hyped today that I really hope you come out of here thinking, wow, there's so much work to do. And I'm one of those people that will make change. Absolutely. Anyway, now to answer your question, for us at PepsiCo, we realize that the strength of our community is the success of our business. We also recognize, and it was said a million times today, that education opens the doors of opportunity. And if you want to do something at PepsiCo, we are doing two things, internal and external. I'll start with external. We have committed $40 million to educate our communities in two ways. One is for those students who are interested in community college, and the other one is for the students who will be graduating community college and we're helping them transform, moving to bachelor's degrees of 4 years college. But we're doing it all around. I don't know if you were anything like me. I grew up with no mentors who told me, hey, what you needed to do in school or what you shouldn't do in school or what opportunities were there. So we have built a system and we're using our talented employees to coach and mentor all of these students in our communities so that we're not leaving them alone. We're not just enrolling them, we're walking with them. That's one in the external perspective. In the internal perspective, we also have internal employees in the front line or even, professionals. So we now pay for their education. If they want to go for their associates, for their bachelor's, or they want to get stackable degrees or certifications, that is also something that the organization is doing. Now, yes, I'm boasting about what PepsiCo is doing, but I'm also saying if we want to close the gap, we don't have a choice. We need to do this. So if your organizations want to learn, like by all means, I am here to support you, to support our communities, because I can't do this. PepsiCo can't do this alone. It's going to take all of us. So that is my spiel of why this is so important to corporate America. And I hope that you realize it too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The rest of our panel, want to comment?
Absolutely. I'll pick you off of what Merary just is talking about. Just real talk. Honestly, we hear the stats. We see the progress of what that we're making. It's in their best interest. Corporate America, their role, it's in their best interest. And if they're not taking action now, they're at a disadvantage. And I'll give you an example. Recently talking to Wayfair, they're not talking about just leadership positions. They're talking about frontline employees, talking about development for their frontline employees because they see where their employees are going. And so if companies like Wayfair can invest in frontline employees, that's a great start. It's refreshing to the ear to see that it's not just about leadership positions, it's about making progress from the bottom up.
Absolutely. Agreed. And I love to see what Pepsi is doing, because it's partnering with us on our journey. And whether it is associates going to college, going on after graduate school, et cetera, that is really getting with us and partnering with us through our journey as we begin our careers, wherever that may lead us. So wonderful. All right. Going to pivot a little bit more. And Mayra, let's talk a little bit about what are the historical underpinnings of higher education, and for whom? From an evolutionary perspective, how we kept up with the changing needs with our population, with our growth shifts, and why should this matter to corporate America?
Sure, thank you. Well, I want to start by saying I was not expecting to wear my Frida t-shirt today, but my daughter was asked, all of our kids at school today were invited to dress as someone they were inspired by. And my baby girl said she wanted to dress up like her mommy. So we have Frida shirts, matching shirts. And so here I am. I couldn't go home and change after drop off. But I say that also to say this work is very personal. I do everything I do and stand in front of people that I don't know to speak, because my girls are impacted by everything we choose to do or not to do in these rooms, first of all. Second of all, I think it's very important that as a community, we also learn to acknowledge the value that our families bring to us. So I know we talk about mentorship in a professional way. I would not be where I am if my mom hadn't busted her butt as a single widowed mother in her low-income job, right? She may not have attained a doctorate. She does by honorary distinction by me being her daughter, but I think we also really need to have conversations about the value of our community in making us successful in the things that we're not typically considering as valuable, right? And them making food for us, and them bringing medicine when we're sick, and them taking care of our kids when we're working is all valuable. So just an invitation on that. That also leads to the answer to the question. So this is historical. I'm not trying to be argumentative or to start any kind of controversy. Higher education in this country was created based on the European model of education, and the European model of education was created for wealthy white men. Okay, so that's what we still have today. That's the model for community colleges. That's the model everywhere. So that's issue number one, right? We continue to grow. I contributed 2 children to that census. You're welcome. And I have my children as an act of resistance, right? We're awesome and we need to be here. And if I could have had more, I would have, but it's expensive and I'm tired. So, but this is not a system for us. Corporations are not systems for us. We're communal people, we're community people. And this pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality totally goes against the grain of who we are, our DNA as a people and as a community. Institutions of higher learning, K through 12, they're all assimilation. They're assimilation institutions, right? We learn one history, we learn just one type of history. We're not in those books. My children have to come home and learn additional things about Thanksgiving and Columbus Day that are not taught in our schools. So again, this is not to be controversial. This is what it is, right? These are not institutions for us. And I can tell you, thank you. I can tell you as a previous administrator, as a previous vice president in a community college, and now as a faculty member, they're not for us as administrators and as leaders, either as faculty members. So we have to acknowledge that there's a lot of institutional barriers that carry hundreds of years of weight that are not for us, number one. So we have to be aware of that, and we have to figure out ways to encourage changes to happen, right? So one example I'll give is internships. Many internships are unpaid. Guess who that leaves out? Us, I did not participate in internships because I could not afford to participate in internships. It's just the reality. Now we know through the pandemic, the people that have been most impacted and exited the workforce most are Latina and Black women who are single parents. When we have internships that are unpaid, their kids don't eat. So we have to be aware of the systems that we have created. Again, these are systems for rich white men. You can do an unpaid internship if you come from a wealthy family. The reality is the majority of students who come to higher education and the growth we're seeing and expecting is going to be a lot of students who cannot afford unpaid internships. Okay, so we have to look at our structures. We have to consider internally in our institutions how we continue to hinder our students and keep them from coming back when we put fines on them because they can't pay for tuition. Can we instead figure out ways to have PepsiCo, you know, helping you, I think, and I love
we
hearing.
also give them internships, by the way.
Thank you, paid, I'm sure. So we have to pair up with companies who are going to help us see the barriers that we create ourselves, right? You don't know that you've drank the Kool-Aid that creates barriers until you've paid many thousands of dollars in graduate education. These are not things I learned in my early free school. I am still paying the debt and will continue to pay the debt that taught me all of this inequity. So we have to be outspoken. It's important for you to help encourage leaders within institutions to look at what structures are in place that actually hinder the success and access to students rather than impulse them to succeed. And that's creating a priority for students to have tuition paid, offering classes at times when people can participate outside of work, TCC, and I know my colleague's gonna talk, there's classes at 6:30 in the morning that faculty will teach that enable a parent to show up and still make it to work by 8 o'clock in the morning. So how are corporate organizations partnering with institutions to encourage that kind of involvement and that type of creativity to enable students to stay engaged, right? And to be able to continue so they can break cycles of poverty and not have to be poor in the process. I'll stop there.
And Mayra, just to tag on to that, also, I'd like you to just double tap on also where we go to school. So corporations do reach out, they do have internships, they do have mentorships, but what schools do they go to? You know, our illustrious young are very intelligent and do go to Yale and do go to Harvard, et cetera. But we also go to our state school, our junior college, et cetera. So another advent there is if you could speak on and that partnership with where we go to school. Come to where we go to school.
Yes, thank you. And so everybody has knowledge about Hispanic serving institutions, right? Enrollment has to be 25% of that population who identify as Latino, Hispanic, Chicano. They're still predominantly white institutions. So the systems don't change to ensure that that particular population is more successful, number one. Number two, in Texas, California, you know, go with the map. HSIs, the majority of HSIs are in the states where there's the majority of the Latino Hispanic population. HSIs are mainly community colleges because that's where our people enroll. That's where they can afford to enroll. That's where there's opportunities for them to enroll. So Ivy Leagues are wonderful. Listen to the Freakonomics episodes 500 and 501. They're talking about colleges. And it's very interesting. We are not at the Ivy Leagues. The Ivy Leagues were not set up for us. Some state schools, many state schools were not set up for us, okay? So we are community colleges. We're in all the places. We're in the Rio Grande Valley. We're at UTSA. We're in all these places where people don't necessarily want to go to. Many of our population actually is trying to leave those places because they know the jobs are here. But it's important for the data to continue to be brought into the conversation when you're looking at recruitment to see where our students are, exactly as you mentioned, Delia. Where are they matriculating? Where are they enrolling? Where are they graduating? Focus in on where they're not graduating. How can you partner with those institutions to see what you can do to help those graduation numbers increase? Because that matters to all of us. I need my girls to see doctors and nurses and teachers that look like them. And that's why I'm here. I need them to see CEOs that look like them. I think my little baby likes the fact that people call me doctor and vice president and all of those things. And that's why she wanted to be like mommy today. It matters, and it matters to her classmates, and it matters to us. When we help those who are struggling the most, that's when we help, that helps all of us, and we know that, right? But again, it's a matter of finding us where we are, supporting us where we are in ways that really are intentional, not performative. All of these DEI offices popping up in colleges and universities, there's no real number growth happening at the bottom. They look real nice, but how can companies partner with colleges and universities to see what the outcomes are, and how can we be held accountable based on what companies' expectations are about how we should be performing?
We have elements that right. So this is the reason you can go they eat right or they don't eat. Not if I can't find, okay, the you answer focus what we close to them to me or the all this important, but again they looking at the was with both sides. Your education is the best quarter, but is the social within our and is better than our friends all and everyone else.
You think that and to be I have a coach and was to go to matters and strictly put in on it. So the thing called perhaps do his in this and being $1,000 to with next year. What you ask is part that one many people if you create a now one day we'll see world now the and your next show them.
I add a couple of things here. Maybe my narrative is a little bit different. I strongly and adamantly believe that America, we're here, and we should be so grateful. If you've ever traveled to a third world country and you come back, I don't know about you, but I always feel so empowered and grateful. And because I live in Texas, the first thing I want is Whataburger.
Absolutely.
Second thing is that I've learned not to have a victim mentality. First and foremost, we all have our challenges. From whatever it may be, whether it's our ethnicity, our race, etc. But the reality of it is that we live in the United States of America, and we have the opportunity to live the American dream. We do. And if you don't see it, you need to find it. I can go on and on about this soapbox, but I know we're on a limited time and I see the clock. But if you have any questions, this is a wonderful panel, but we need to look beyond just our race, our ethnicity, and take a look at what progress really means for our Latino community.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Very nice.
Thank you for that, Maryanne. So I'm going to pivot here just a little bit because we had been talking about education and the joint partnership for corporations as we begin and go forth on our journeys. So Maryanne, since you were just speaking, I'm going to kind of pivot to you. So panel, I switched up the questions. So what are the tools or resources that would support the inclusion and development of the next generation of Latinos?
Woo! Okay, so where do I start? So I'm Maryanne Piña, by the way, if you don't know. I am co-owner of Career Management Partners. We're a talent and transition firm here in the Dallas area, offices all over. But the reality of it is that there's a couple things to that question. Number one, from a development standpoint, I would say that Latinos, myself included, we don't know what we don't know. If you knew my story, you'd be like, what? But here I am. If we were to do a privilege walk, we would probably end up in different areas in the room, but we probably come from very similar places. So from a development standpoint, Latinos truly need to know their career insights, their behavioral insights. And a lot of times, the thing that's not spoken is our cultural scripts. I grew up with immigrant parents from Mexico, that the very first thing that I can remember was like, Maryanne, respeta. How does that translate into corporate America? The reality of it is that it doesn't.
Right.
And so how do you put yourself at the table, being your authentic self with your cultural values? Trust me, it was challenging.
Yes.
But that's one. Number two, it's the inclusion. We always want to put it on the Latino employee. Oh, well, you got to be better. Oh, well, you got to be developed. Yeah, that's great. And it's true. But what about our leaders?
Yep.
Can we turn the table? I don't know about you guys, but I love House of Cards. And there was one quote that he said in there that he said, if you don't like the tables on the card, you freaking flip that table. So I'm flipping the table.
Yep.
Yeah, get it, girl.
Yep.
And with that, I put it on them. Do you have the cultural competence to lead me, to lead us? Do you understand why Sandra Rosa or Maria or, Merary doesn't speak up at the table? Do you understand why we say, well, Mr. So-and-so, with all due respect? I didn't know that until I had a non-Hispanic, and this is where we need our allies, that pulled me to the side and said, Maryanne, just stop. You don't need to say with all due respect. Just say what you have to say and get your point across. Done. I got it. Two things.
Yep.
It's not just about development, it's about inclusion, and do it the right way. Not because it's the diversity imperative, not because it's the freaking business imperative, but because it's the community imperative. Let's unite.
And I agree, it's our development with that inclusion lens. That's absolutely.
And I'll add one more thing. And again, I'm about call to action or giving examples of some of the things that you can do at your places. And one of the things that we're doing is we brought a program together where we're not just building the capability of the Latinos, because let me just say something. You're already brilliant, you're already smart, you're already amazing, and you're already changing the world. So one of the things that we're doing is we're bringing their managers along, and we're helping them, coaching them, and teaching them about our culture so that our people don't have to do it. We're doing that. So it's a program where Latino leaders are educating leaders how to not just lead and manage, but how to grow the Latino community. And this is where you bring the inclusion in. Because a lot of the times we're saying, hey, what are you doing to lead me? You don't understand my culture. But at the end of the day, the reality is they were probably not exposed. I don't know about you, but I grew up in a, in a neighborhood where everybody looked like me. Yep. So I had to get educated about corporate America. The same thing, I would bet you most of corporate America didn't grow up in a neighborhood that looked like me. You grew up in a neighborhood that looked like them. So there's a call to action, there's a responsibility. Don't just develop your diverse talent, but also educate on how to lead and grow. I repeat, grow Latino talent.
and grow without restrictions and without, it's like driving a fast car with the parking brake on, because of the values, and all of that is important. But we have the confidence, we have the knowledge, we have the expertise and the drive to advance the movement and advance ourselves in our career. So I just wanted to add to what you mentioned. Yeah.
And you know what? It's also educating our leadership. Yes. Our leadership understands the word cultural inclusivity, but that's the definition. Now let's bring that to life. Quite often from a leadership perspective, and I'm really interested in all of your perspectives, is where we're going and how we get there is as important as who's with us as we're getting there. So from my lens, being first generation myself, and like you said, you grow up with people who look just like you. For my children who are African-American and Mexican-American. And, Roberta, you brought up that point again, that where our demographics are going. So for me, I've got that duality of lens where I'm trying to see what is being set in place for my children and their children as we grow and as we diversify.
I want to add something really quick, a question that I encourage my students. So I'm teaching students who are going to become college and university leaders, who are going to be the faculty members teaching in all of our colleges and universities. And one thing I want to encourage us as I'm hearing the conversation is to ask why not, right? Like when we're looking at our data, who's advancing, who's not advancing, and then go deeper into the why not, right? When we have those conversations and start to really have that intentional dialogue too, that really helps us dig into, some of the issues that may be structural, historical, accidental. A lot of times, again, we don't even realize how we may be hindering our own people's progress, right? And it's asking those questions, who's advancing, who's not advancing. For my students, we're looking at graduation rates, who graduates and who doesn't graduate. When we're looking at events, right, that we host at the colleges and universities, who goes into the Career Services Center, who's not going? And what do we need to do to change things to make it more palatable for those folks to be there? And are we asking them, right? Because I think the other thing, I know students get real upset about us creating a narrative as administrators and faculty about what we think is happening. And I know we may do that as leaders. I may do that as a parent. And again, it's not intentional, but it's going to the source to say what is happening here that is not helping you grow, that's not helping you advance, that makes it hard for you to participate in the meetings, that makes it so that you don't come to our conference events, or travel. I know I had a boss one time assume that I didn't want to travel somewhere because I was a mom. Are you kidding me? I need to travel because I am a mom. You want to put me in a hotel for how many days without my kids? Yes, please, thank you.
That's right.
The great thing is that he said it. And because he said it, I was able to say, oh no, please, where do I sign? When am I leaving? Right. And these are some, and it's not with ill intent. There are assumptions that are made thinking that it's in the best interest and helpful, but no, you weren't going to help me. It was actually going to take me back professionally to not participate in these conferences that all of my other colleagues were going to, again, because of values, assumptions that I don't want to participate in these things because I'm any one identity. So, please encourage each other to start asking why people aren't here, people aren't advancing, people aren't succeeding, and then going to the source to ask what they need so they can.
If I can add really quick, the other thing is, as we advance and as we are, having an interest, it is important to communicate that interest. If we are lucky enough, fortunate enough to have a mentor or to have somebody that is guiding us, communicate that desire, because they may help you arrive to that, not necessarily faster, but maybe better prepared. And I'm in my particular case, I have benefited from that because I have been saying, I would like to do this. And I have been lucky that my supervisors, people around me, have allowed me to, kind of craft my own map. So just wanted to point out as well.
But I think you really hit on another key aspect here, and that's those key elements of sponsorship, mentorship, allyship, right? And you mentioned yourself, if it wasn't for these people who helped you, would you be here today? Absolutely, probably, right? You'd be here anyway. But that all throughout our careers, regardless of whether we go in the non-for-profit sector, the corporate sector, you know, our own entrepreneur, having someone that looks like you who can be a mentor. I had to have someone explain to me when I was very young what a mentor was. It took me a long time to figure out what a sponsor really was. So nobody teaches you this. This is something you have to learn along the way, but it's even more pivotally important for those within our culture to bring that forth with us. So my call to action would be to the corporations to realize the importance of mentorship, of allyship, of sponsorship. Help us to with that, because we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, and the only other thing that I would add is, you know, hopefully you're here today because you believe in this cause. And I would just ask you, if you're not mentoring somebody, if you're not sponsoring somebody and you're in a position of power, if you're not looking at your policies and what is holding back Latinos and other cohorts from moving up, then I urge you to really think back, to really think and say, am I gonna help or not? Because everybody in this room can do something. I don't care how big or how small. Maybe your organization doesn't go to the colleges, go to the high schools. You know, you don't even need to go far. Go to our neighborhoods in Dallas. There are people that need to be mentored. So my question to you is, are you in or are you out? Because if you're in, you need to take action. Small or big, trust me, we need everybody in this room to get, to change the narrative and for us to be in the positions that we deserve to be in.
And the mentorship could be formal and informal as well. So.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, my mentors have most of them been informal. Some people, they don't even know they're mentoring me.
Exactly.
I'll go talk to Dalia and be like, hey, what do you think about this? Right? And I mentor people, they don't even know. If you wait for an invitation, te vas a quedar esperando. If that didn't happen to you, it happened to me. So I don't wait. Go, help out and support your community. So just ask yourself, are you in or out? And if you're in, I don't care what that looks like. Do something, because there's work for all of us in this space.
I'm all in.
Don't be shy.
All right.
I'm in.
So I'm going to pivot the questions again. And, you know, Carlos and Mayra, we've talked about our barriers, et cetera, but let's do a little double tap on that as well. So how can we effectively act to combat the barriers the Hispanic community faces regarding quality education? We know education equals opportunity. So are there ways to take collective action across the sectors and industries? Because I want all of us to leave here with more calls to action that we actually not just talk about, but do.
Want to start?
Well, random, but HBCU model came to mind as you were asking that question. That model is so important and so valuable, I think, in part because the students feel like they're going to school to their aunts and their uncles who are going to yank them by the ear if they're not doing their homework and doing the things that they need to do to finish, right? And if you listen to that Freakonomics episode 500, you'll hear Ruth Simmons, who's president of Prairie View A&M University, talk about mission-driven institutions. And the mission of the HBCU is to have those students complete. Mission at other institutions can be look left, look right, two of you aren't going to be here. HBCUs and minority serving institutions, the mission is to get everybody out. The mission is to get everybody through, not to compete with one another. So I think it's very important to consider how we can externally help to build that community on our institutions, independent of whether they're Hispanic serving, Black, minority serving institutions. What are ways, and I think the mentorship's a big way that we can help build communities so that the faculty feel supported and empowered by external folks. It's real easy, y'all. I can tell you again, as a faculty member right now, to feel like you're on this island and you're the brown speckle, freckle in the entire college. Yeah, I don't know if they want my kids to do well as much as I do, right? Having that support externally and having you help to build that community, I think really helps. And it's not only through the mentorship, but again, how are you employing interns? How are you helping them to create that pipeline that goes from the high school to the community college to the university and into leadership positions within your companies and your organizations. And we can talk about in detail what that could look like, but I think it's really important that we help to build that community. And also, again, you know, encourage the change, the structural change that needs to happen in institutions. I too am very grateful to be, have been born in the States and to live in the States. But I think it's important for us to know our history, right? Good, bad, or the other. It's good to know where we are so that we know where we need to go. And I think helping to have those conversations too is really important.
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, I have your email in regards to your sponsorship. Okay, so I'll be following up.
Happy to help.
Okay,
There
and I'm
you go.
inviting myself on that aspect, right? So number one, number two, certainly many of the things that the colleagues here on the panel have mentioned are very important. Once again, back to mentorship. Okay, in two ways, right? The formal, the informal. You being the mentor, but also being a mentee. The other thing is, don't be shy and ask. Okay, you know, people will not, you know, eat you alive. It's simply that you need to make the approach, and many people, many professionals, many persons in high-level positions are very eager to mentor because they want to give back, right? They may have been mentored before and they want to continue doing that. Try to identify somebody that could be a role model for you, or be a role model for somebody, right? And again, these things may happen informally and formally. Certainly, I don't know how many parents are here, right? Or how many of you listen to your parents. So in two ways, right? As a parent, certainly we have a role in which we are not only, you know, helping with the crianza, right? But at the same time, we influence the future of our children, right? And on the children's side, we need to hear our parents, okay? As I tell my children, yo tuve 14 años dos veces. So I had 14 years old twice, right? Or 20 years old twice, right? So I know a thing or two. They give me this look, right? But they understand what I'm saying. So there is an influence that we play in terms of the future. Something that I saw almost 10, 12 years ago is a campaign from the Hispanic Scholarship Institute organization, fund, that is called Tus Palabras de Hoy. So you can look it up. It's vintage video on YouTube, but you can look it up, and it's very powerful because, again, in two ways, it helps you advancing this process. More partnerships, again, with the public sector and the community, how we can reduce the time for us to advance not only in education, but in positions. And again, we need to be ambitious. We need to communicate what we want, and we need to find those pathways for us. Certainly more emphasis on DEIB. Okay, we are at the institution level, we are doing more and more of that. In our case, we are hiring a chief diversity officer. So again, this is an activity that is happening at the highest level of the organization and moving down. How we can continue to remove inequities and barriers. Important, you know, again, do the FAFSA. There is funding available. Seek scholarships. Ask. Google. Connect with people that may have been ahead of you or before you in some of the things in two ways, in the challenge and maybe the success, okay? Because it doesn't hurt to ask them. So I guess that's the summary.
Agree. Totally agree. Maryanne, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say one more thing from a corporate America perspective. I mean, it goes to everybody. We need you to stay in the game. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you, being in corporate America is not easy. Let's just keep it real. But I wouldn't be here if I didn't stay in the game. Absolutely. And if you haven't met, I haven't met most of the people here, so hopefully I'll get to, but look around you. This is our familia for real, corporate familia. Help each other, talk to each other. A lot of the things that are going on, they're not different to us, but we need to hear that we're there together. Because if you don't stay in the game, our children won't see that. The future generation won't see people that look like us. And you made me think of that, Carlos, because I have an 8 and a 6-year-old, and I'm like, you know how many times I wanted to quit school? Because it was hard to be a corporate mother and go to school, but I want to create the change that she is going to see. And I stayed the game. And today, like you reminded me, they're walking around, you know, Doctora Mami, and I'm like, yeah, I like that title. But you got to stay in the game. So if you do nothing else, stay in the game and get the support. Get the support from the people around you. You'll be surprised how many people want to support your success.
Any last words? We're at 30 seconds.
You know what, I do. Clearly, I'm sitting on a great panel. I don't have my doctorate, so I'm a little less than, but that's okay.
No, you're not.
No.
Hey, take that back. Take that back.
Let's rewind.
I don't mean it. I'm just saying it. No, honestly, you know what? I don't know if you've ever heard, but like leadership is a lot like parenting. So raise your hand if you have a child, a nephew, a niece. If you're not raising your hand, you need to find one. Like,
I got some.
because what is the first thing you do when your child or your niece is having an issue? I'm like, seriously, like, Siri, how am I a better parent?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if corporate America picked up the darn phone and said, how can I be a better inclusive leader? I don't know if you know the starfish story, and I won't get into it, but if you do, you know that it just takes one small action to make a difference. So I'll stop there.
And along with what you said, we can look for un sobrino postizo. Okay, so.
Yeah.
Eso.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I want to thank our illustrious panel today. You've been phenomenal. A good discussion, great calls to action. And as we focus on the quality of education and how we begin and walk through our journey. And for me, you know, everything I've heard today is absolutely amazing, and it is insightful, and it is right on point. And then for me, it's about legacy. So legacy is not what I leave you. Legacy is what I teach you. So thank you very much.